would like to call to order the Town of Shelburne Development Review Board meeting for Wednesday, February 5th, 2020. And I would just like to remind any and everybody that we've got a clipboard over there. If you could please sign in for the record. And then, is there any public comment for anything that is not on the agenda? Okay. Hearing none, we shall move on to approval of the minutes from December 18, 2019 and January 15, 2020.
I would make a motion to accept December 18th minutes as written.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. And then I would also go on to approve the January 15th minutes as written.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Will the minutes for tonight indicate that those who were not present are abstaining?
Yeah, you can put me down for abstaining on voting on January 15th meeting minutes.
And you can put me down for abstaining on the 18th of December. I wasn't there.
Okay, next item, I would like to ask any members of the board if they have any disclosures relating to any potential conflicts of interest.
No.
No comments? I will comment that I do know the applicant for the next agenda item, DR 20-01, but I do not believe that that will affect my judgment here. But I will ask if there's anybody from the public that has any reason to disclose any potential conflicts of board members that are here. Okay, hearing none, disclosures are complete. Okay. Now let's talk about application DR 2001. And that is an application by Glenn and Barbara Johnson for the removal of an existing garage and the construction of a new garage in addition to the west side of the home. Property is at 636 Falls Road. It's located in the Village Residential District and Village Design Review Overlay District. Dean, do you have any comments?
I do, but as at the suggestion of the municipal attorney, if I'm going to say anything, I would ask to be sworn. So you can take care of the whole night right now.
Okay. Okay, I'll swear at you. Dean, do you hereby swear or affirm that the evidence you give in the cause under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
Okay, thank you.
This is a design review application filed for a property here in the village, and it's governed by the Village Design Review Overlay District. It constitutes the removal of an existing garage, replacing that garage with a new garage that has an attached porch on it. And then the last element of the project is an addition to the house. The addition would be on the non-street side. It's at 636 Falls Road. The staff report indicates that this was discussed by the HPDRC back on January 23rd, and I know actually that there was also a preliminary discussion of this project going back some months earlier. The sum total of the review by the HPDRC is a recommendation to approve. There is one piece of the project that is subject to change, which is the door on the street side of the house. And the recommendation is that your approval indicate that the door, when it's decided, would be reviewed and approved by the HPDRC, but would not come back to the DRB. And Austin is here.
Representing Swingers.
I will swear you in.
Okay, and this is the first DRB meeting I've ever been to, so feel free to coach me through it. I can tell.
Okay, do you swear or affirm that the evidence you give in the cause under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. So just kind of go through what the plan is. Starting at site plan. So the top site is existing. This is the garage we plan to remove. This is the existing house. The new accessory garage will be accessed from this drive. It's just a single car with a little carport / porch. They're going to use it mostly as a porch for the time being. And the addition is off the back side of the house here with access just through a little mudroom area in here. A new proposed parking for the parents is here. Kind of demo and turn this back into lawn between the space and slightly affect this new drive over here. This is the new accessory garage plan. Pretty much just a rectangle garage door on this side, some access for lawnmowers and such over there, with a little carport off the side. And then some perspectives of it, so that's kind of what it would look like. Roof pitch will match, siding, all the trim work will match the existing home. And they'd like a brown galvanized steel roof. I know the current house is architectural shingles, but the colors will relate. On to the addition. This is the door we were discussing. This was the proposed door, which wasn't passed, but I do have a couple options after doing some research. Do I present that to you guys or HDRB? Up to you guys. Anyway. Another proposal to replace this window up here. It's hard to see on the screen, but it's just 3 double hung windows pushed together that equal the size of that space. And the floor plan of the addition, this area of the house is existing. This area is the mudroom we're going to tie into with access from the north and south side. And then here's a kitchen, living space, bedroom, and a little study for her piano. And then just a master bathroom with a small deck off the back. Foundation plan, we're actually not going to connect the two just because the foundation on this is so delicate. We're just going to span that distance with whatever our engineer tells us to. Some elevations of the addition. And just some rent perspectives of the exterior. This part of the house is existing, and then here's that little connection mudroom space. And that is it. Any questions or concerns?
I had no questions. Any questions or comments from the board?
So the window section on the roof is just replacing the windows, right?
Just the window. If the trim's rotten, we'll have to replace that too, but we're matching everything as best we can.
Looks like on the site plans, there's some easements that run through the property? Is that
There
what
are.
those
Run back here.
It's kind of hard to see. So we're okay with that?
Yeah, so there was a proposed duplex that went through, I'm not totally sure how long ago, but it's maybe 5 years ago. And that was a proposed drive through their property, so there's some easements there. I think his lot was subdivided for that.
And there's no issues, Dean, with the, a little bit of impervious driveway in the setback?
No, a single driveway,
Not a problem.
not in this location.
Shared access is not a problem.
Shared access, this project is not really changing that, as it was mentioned. It was the Johnsons who did the subdivision that resulted in the duplex being created in the rear.
Okay.
But shared driveways are allowed by the regs.
Okay.
I'll just use this as an opportunity to say, this is a project that creates an accessory apartment. It is something that up until a month or so ago, you would have needed to have reviewed as a conditional use. And so it's going to be something that in the future is simpler for folks from a permitting standpoint.
What would the accessory apartment be used for?
Their daughter's actually buying the house, and they're going to then move into this new
Accessory
addition,
apartment.
yeah.
Got it, understood.
Exactly what it was for.
And then the door, what's the question around the door, Dean?
What is the question
Yeah,
on
like
the, I would just sum it up by saying that the members of the HPDRC weren't loving the door, and I think they were just asking the designer to try to work a little bit harder to find something that might be a better substitute. It's this balancing of cost and appearance. So it was not objected to by the applicant to do this. It doesn't mean that it wouldn't be a substantially different door, but they want to make him try a little bit more to see if he couldn't find a supplier for a door that's a little bit more appropriate.
And with that, it's, the client wanted a fiberglass door. It's an old wooden door. Wooden doors just really don't hold up in this climate well.
Right.
Especially if they're uncovered like this one is. But if you go with a fiberglass option, there's a little horizontal panel, and it's really hard to find those these days. You see this little element here. Simpson Door Company they make custom doors to match that, but it's wood again, and fairly expensive, considerably more. But I did, Therma-Tru is a company we trust and use a lot. This is more of a Craftsman style. I don't know if you were more partial to that. Instead of a raised panel, it's just kind of a classic shaker. It's a little more appealing to the eye, but I was trying to match the existing door as best I could with the half glass.
So the top is glass?
The top half of the existing door is just open glass.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? No. Do you have any questions, comments from the public? Okay, hearing none, do we have any member here that would like to make a motion?
Sure, I would make a motion to grant design review approval to Glenn and Barbara Johnson on care of Sweeney Design Build for removal of this existing garage. A new one-car garage with an attached covered porch, addition to the west side of the home. New dormer windows, properties at 636 Falls Road, and 2 conditions, one being the applicant shall obtain approval from HPDRC for replacement of the front door, and 2, a zoning permit shall be required prior to the start of construction.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you. Appreciate it.
thank you.
You made it.
Wasn't that hard?
That was tough. Thank you.
Well, you can come back next time too, if you want.
Yeah.
We'll be tougher than that.
Always welcome.
Okay, our next item is application sub 19-06, application by Richard and Marguerite Meunier for final plan review for a 2-lot residential PUD. Property at 136 Southview Drive is located in the rural district. Okay, I think we'll start with Dean.
Yes, as you said, this is a minor PUD in the rural district. If the Meuniers were here, I'd be able to recognize them for their resoluteness. This has been a long road for them. They purchased this property back in a time when 10 acres was the minimum lot size in the rural district, or what was then the rural district. The zoning then changed to 5 acres, which would have opened up the possibility of subdivision, and then the zoning changed again in a way that kept them from subdividing, and then the zoning changed again, and now they can subdivide, but it has to be a PUD, and so that's why it's been a multiple-step process. The staff report is the standard staff report that you would see. There are some staff recommendations. I can tell you that one of the recommended conditions can be struck because at the time I wrote the staff report, I had not received the final comments from Chris Robinson. And
Okay.
I did receive comments, and I can share copies that he has no additional comments regarding the Meunier project, so that one could be struck. The remaining suggested conditions are somewhat boilerplate. One, just saying that the legal docs, and it specifies the open space agreement and the easement would be reviewed by the town's attorney and approved before they're recorded. Then also related to the open space agreement, that it's gotta be recorded in the land records before the Mylar can be filed. Third condition, Mylars within 180 days of the decision. The fifth condition is something that we're as staff trying to get into the handle of, or get in the hang of employing, and that has to do with blasting, and then specifying the use or adherence to the state of Vermont blasting guidance document. I'm not aware of blasting being planned. If Mike has an explanation of how that would never be something considered, then the board could certainly consider striking it, but we're trying to get in the hand of doing it. And the last one, of course, being requiring a building permit.
Okay. We'll swear in. Do you swear or affirm that the evidence you give in the cause under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
Okay. And your name, please?
Hi, I'm Mike Koch with Civil Engineering Associates, and I'm here this evening representing Dick and Peg Meunier, presenting their subdivision to the DRB. Dean, is there a way to get some of the application materials on the screen? I'd like to pull up the proposed condition site plan, please.
You have to move that so it's more comfortable to pull it out.
Yeah.
Being hunched over.
Thank you.
However you want to do it. You can even take it out.
Count that if you want.
So, modify this yourself.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
And they have paper copies of everything.
As Dean introduced the project, this is proposed two-lot PUD subdivision. And currently, Dick and Peg Meunier live on the eastern side, roughly where the mouse is currently, which would be proposed Lot 1. And proposed Lot 2 is where they're planning on building their future residence. So they do plan to continue to live in the area. Just for orientation, north points to approximately, I'd say 10 o'clock. You can see Spear Street, which runs north to south towards the bottom of the plan. And the project is located at the intersection of Southview Drive and Spear Street. Just to review the topography of the site a bit, along Spear Street on the west, you have this open meadow, and then the site climbs gradually in elevation as you go further toward the east. And also submitted was a copy of the final plat, which is on the screen currently. And as the property is less than 15 acres, we have included 60% open space to be preserved. And that's my introduction.
Any questions, comments from the board?
I have a question, maybe that I'm new to this, but is it because of the topography of the land that the driveway is off of Spear Street instead of off Southview Drive?
Yeah, that's correct.
Whereabouts most of the open space going to be? Go up there and point
Sure.
to the highlighters.
See, sorry, I'm kind of in the way here. This is the call out for open space and open space. So basically the areas that are proposed to be developed are in this building envelope for the proposed house along Spear Street.
So that site would see a drive that goes into Spear Street?
Pardon me?
That site would see a driveway?
This is a call out for a dimension, but I can pull up the other plan which will show the proposed location of the driveway. And then there's proposed building envelope around the existing house on Lot 1. And the open space is not permitted to be in areas of existing or proposed wastewater systems, which explains the 2 other polygons on the right side of the screen.
So both sites, when they're, should they go into existence, we'll see their driveways on Southview Road? Nothing into Spear?
Yes, there's one proposed driveway going on
Just
Sister
one,
Street,
okay.
and we're keeping the
rest-
existing driveway that's off of Southview.
Okay, thanks.
Any other comments, questions from the board? Comments, questions from the public? Okay, hearing none, do we have a motion from the board?
You want to do it?
Doing the motion.
Page 13?
I can do a motion.
Good. Okay,
Have a,
go for it, Mike.
So I make a motion to finalize the record, close the hearing. Move to direct staff to prepare a decision approving the application SUB 1906 with conditions. Such conditions shall contain those identified in the final plan staff report for the project, being the suggestions of number 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. 1 will be excluded.
Okay, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Dean, this next one where the application's been withdrawn, do we need to do anything with that?
No, it needed to be on the agenda because it had been warned. The withdrawal of the application occurred after the notice. So it was scheduled, put on, but as you had in your packets, the applicant has withdrawn the application and will be submitting a different application shortly. Actually, he may have already done it.
Nothing we should.
Nothing we do.
Nothing you do tonight.
Okay. Then we'll move on to application sub 19-08/CU 20-01, which is an application by Trinity Baptist Church for preliminary plan review of a 2-lot subdivision bisecting a parcel with existing conditional use church and on proposed vacant parcel 8-unit residential PUD. Property at 127 Webster Road is located in the residential district and stormwater overlay district. Dean, could you give us the overview?
Sure, I'll tee it up for you. This project has been before the board at sketch, and the sketch plan approval recommendations were included in the staff report, and you will find them on page 3. The staff report recommendations relate to sidewalk, and as you know, the zoning regulations have some pretty significant sidewalk requirements now. There is some area of sidewalk depicted, and the question would be whether or not that's sufficient to satisfy the regulations, and there were some comments provided that led staff to recommend that as a condition of preliminary plan, you would ask the applicant to come back to show a sidewalk or some other connection that goes more directly to the west. The current plan is essentially to the south. I won't bother to repeat it verbatim, but you find it as recommendation 1. Then there are some conditions proposed, recommended, that have to do with the fact that, similar to what happened with the Meunier application you just dealt with, staff had not received the comments from the water department or the water quality folks, namely Chris Robinson. So there are, the second condition or recommended condition says that when they come back, if you approved it for final, that they would respond to the comments submitted by Rick Lewis. And I do have those comments that were submitted, and I will send those down the table momentarily. The second, or rather the third which is similar, is comments from Chris Robinson. And everyone will be able to read those when they get down the table, and these have been forwarded to Seth, so the applicant has them as well. And it's somewhat standard technical stuff that you see in the comments from the water department and from the wastewater folks, which also sweep in South Burlington. One of the comments from the city of South Burlington's review having to do with stormwater is that the board should consider having a condition that makes it clear that the applicant is responsible for the maintenance of stormwater facilities. Recommended condition 4 reflects the fact that although he didn't initially register any concerns in a Public Works meeting, Highway Superintendent Paul Goodrich had suggested that there could be the need for some road signs, something like caution ahead, entering traffic. He was not specific, but recommended condition 4 is a placeholder for the applicant to pursue some specifics from Paul Goodrich about which signs and where they should go. And then the 5th recommended condition has to do with landscaping. There are trees proposed on one of the plans. They're all the same type of river birch. And the suggestion of staff was that there be a separate landscaping plan and that perhaps seek the input from the tree advisory committee. Or if they can't be scheduled in time, then perhaps seek the input from the chair or the tree warden. And then the final recommended condition has to do with just some statement that makes it clearer what this open space is to be used for. One of the concerns that had been raised during the review process was you'll have 8 homes. Some of those homes will be located quite close to an area that's being defined as open space. The feeling is that that distance could lead owners or residents of those homes to start to use that open space area as though it was their own. And so if this is to be a natural space, then their statement should make it clear what that is intended. If it's going to be a recreational space, make it clear that that's what is intended. But as part of their final application, they could make a more full statement about the use of that space. I did mention in that recommended wording that the Natural Resources Committee's reviews, their feeling was that the buffer should remain unmowed and that natural species would be planted, and that personal furnishings and things like recreational equipment, play sets shouldn't be in that open space area. That would be something for the board to consider.
Okay. Do you swear or affirm that the evidence you give in the cause under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
And could you state your name, please?
My name is Seth Goddard with Krebs and Lansing Consulting Engineers, and I'm representing Trinity Baptist Church. Dean, is it possible that I could use this and show the... Perfect, thank you. I'm just going to put up the, first show the subdivision plan. Sorry, that's actually. This is the subdivision plan. First off, this is located not too far south and east off of Route 7 at the 90-degree turn for Webster Road. It's an existing lot that Trinity Baptist would like to subdivide. And the lot number 1, which is on the northern half of the plan shown here, would remain as is, be the church, the parking lot, and the existing associated house that is on the lot. No changes are proposed to any of the wastewater, impervious areas, everything else, everything on the lot will remain the same. The new lot, which is a planned PUD, would have 4 new duplex units, be accessed by a private road that would come off from the west side of the property from Webster Road. You can see that the open space is along the 50-foot periphery of the PUD. It's a tight area, so this seemed to make the most sense for have a continuous open space area for the lot. And as Dean said, there was some discussion with NRCC about what it would be used for. And I think we want to be clear that we would like to have it for active recreational use. I mean, we would like the people that are going to buy these condos to be able to go outside and use their backyard. And we don't want to restrict it from having it being mowed or anything like that. So we'll make that clear in our final application. The project will, all of the new impervious area, switch plans here. The new impervious area from the 4 duplexes and the new driveway will all be treated, and all the stormwater will be treated. And this project requires a operational stormwater permit and a construction stormwater permit from the state. So we have not submitted either of those yet, but after this meeting and with your approval, we will move forward with that submission, with both of those submissions. It also requires a water and wastewater permit from the state. I guess the other item that is looming here is what Dean had talked about with the sidewalk. And so what we are showing currently, I'll show you what is existing out there right now along Webster Road. Currently south of the property, the recreational path comes along the south end of the property and then crosses Webster Road right between duplex 1 and 2. And so what we were proposing, because there's no sidewalk currently running north-south along Webster Road, we're proposing a connection to the existing recreational path that would 90-degree perpendicular into it along the southern end of the property. We didn't see how it would make much sense currently to run a sidewalk to nowhere, along the portion of Webster Road that runs north-south. So we're trying to provide, I don't know what the plan is for that, so we're just trying to provide access. Once it was built, it would be immediate access to the recreational path.
Where does that sidewalk terminate?
This sidewalk?
The existing one on Webster Road?
Yeah. It comes to right here, and then it goes across, and then it actually goes all the way down Webster Road and continues down along to Route 7.
Right, so
Yeah.
that would be, at that point, it's on the south side of
Right.
Webster Road.
Yes,
Understood.
exactly.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
I think that summarizes what I had to say, but does anybody have any questions?
Do you have any comments, any other further comments on the conditions that were listed?
Let me just double check and make sure I don't.
And some of the conditions are on the letters that we just received, which
Right.
I haven't,
Oh,
I haven't read.
excuse me. As far as the letters go from stormwater and wastewater, we don't have any issues with anything that they are suggesting. And those will come up and be part of our applications to the state also. The staff recommendation 1 is our, in regards to the sidewalk, is our big, we'd like to either, have the existing sidewalk as we show it here, which we think is the ideal location, or just have it run all the way to Webster Road, north-south, but not show this other one that we're proposing right now. We don't see the need for two.
Is there, maybe it's out of our scope, but is there any pickup for like school students on a bus, anything like that?
There is, but it's actually located south along Webster Road, so it's located closer to this corner.
For, now,
Right.
is there going to be any change that you know of with the new construction of the 8 units?
Not that I'm aware of.
So they pick up the Forum Garden side?
That's where the bus stop is. There's a bus stop
Chesapeake.
there.
Chesapeake, right.
Yep.
Okay. So just
Wouldn't
on,
they pick up at the end of this new street? Just knowing how the bus runs in my neighborhood, if there's 8 units there, I would think they could add the end of that as a stop if there were
Oh,
children.
I see what you're saying, they'd, like, just before that, if the sidewalk was there, they would stop there.
The only thing about that is it's kind of an odd place to stop coming around that corner.
Right.
I know, I apologize, I don't know what the bus stop looks like just south of there, but there's also the big subdivision and development that's just south of the property also.
Right. Or it could be at the end of the proposed sidewalk, right on Webster, which is
Exactly.
a straight.
Right.
Which is
Area.
straight right there, correct.
so that I'm clear, you're proposing, you know, one sidewalk, not both.
Right, that's, yes, exactly.
Okay.
Okay.
Chief Lumet had mentioned in his memo about 2 hydrants being placed
Yep.
in there. Are those going to be dead-end hydrants, or are those going to be a looped system?
It's a dead-end system, yeah. Yep, there's gonna be one that's located at the very end of the drive, and then there's one that's just adjacent to Webster Road.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other comments, questions from the board?
I have a comment about the open space and
Okay.
it's a comment. And so, giving people a recreational place to, especially if there are children involved, not that adults don't have recreation, but it kind of makes sense to me to have that space available for, to give kids a place to play. That's just my only comment. So,
Is it mostly wetland to the east of this project?
Wetland?
Yeah.
You, are you talking about across from Webster Road?
No, just keep going.
Oh, sorry, to the east.
To the east.
There's no wetland, it's conserved space though.
Okay.
Yep.
'Cause
oh, you
I-
mean beyond the property?
Yeah, I noticed there's a lot of, looks like marsh grasses growing up, but
Yeah, it's so there's no wetland there, but it is conserved as part of a larger project that was I don't know if you know when it was completed, Dean, but it's the development that's located to the north and east of the project.
oh,
Many years ago.
Yeah.
Farmstead?
Farmstead.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you're not in, there's no wetland to worry about.
Correct.
Okay.
I'd invite any questions, comments from the public. Okay, Gail? Okay. Do you swear or affirm that the evidence you give in the cause under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
So I'm on the Natural Resources Committee, and I recall, to the best of my knowledge, that one of the recommendations we had made to, was to be able to expand some of that space in the buffer to allow for residents to be able to put their personal stuff there and still retain some of the grassland quality, was to shorten the driveway and move that closer to your entry road. And I can't tell from this picture whether that's something that you did do or not.
Yep. To address that, we did shorten the space on the driveway and in the parking area. What we're running into is that we have a 50-foot periphery setback
Right.
along that I guess it would be the northwestern side. So our configuration was, so that the road would stay out of that area. So that's why we didn't really have enough space to move the buildings, push them closer towards the road. They are close to the 50-foot periphery setback, but we didn't see any real option to relocate them.
Yeah, our other rationale in asking for that was to reduce the amount of impervious surface.
Which so addressing that, we shortened that parking area so that I don't know the exact number of impervious area that was removed, but we removed as much as we could in that area. And that's, she's referring to in front of each one of the houses, mainly duplex 1, duplex 2. Duplex 3 and 4, unfortunately, the fire department wanted that size turnaround, so we were required to leave that as it was when we brought it to the NRCC board.
Is there anything going up on the boundary line between the South Webster Road and the property? Any trees or fencing, anything like that?
There is nothing proposed right now.
Okay.
Well, Dean, the 50-foot setback on the PUD is in violet. You can't.
Right, so this is an instance where it's two things. It is the perimeter buffer, the PUD buffer, which is in the regulations in order to, like it sounds, buffer a development from the surrounding area. When you do a PUD, you can have things tighter together, and in theory, by being tighter together, there can be more impacts. So it's intended to buffer the impacts from the outside. And the buffer is supposed to be something that doesn't have a lot going on in it. Now, we also have an open space requirement, and in this application, they're doing two things with the same area, namely to have the perimeter buffer and have the open space. It is one of the features of the regs that the DRB cannot modify at present. So you don't have the authority to say, oh, instead of a 50-foot buffer, it should only be a 40. That is not within your purview. I would also say that one of the things about the buffer is that the idea of having it bisected by the sidewalk, some designs, I think originally this project had at least one iteration where the sidewalk went east-west. It didn't go through the buffer. One question could be, is that the best location if you are going to see it as meeting the definition of the buffer? Is that the appropriate location? And I'm not sure if this plan shows where the crosswalk is, but if you're going to interrupt a buffer, then sometimes you'd want to put it in a less central location. That's one logic. Maybe you'd want to just chime in on what I said so far.
This plan does show, just wait for it to regenerate here, but it does show the existing sidewalk, and hopefully this shows some of our thinking and rationale towards why we put it where it is. So here is the existing sidewalk along Webster Road. And here's our sidewalk that's going in front of, alongside the road in front of the duplexes. And so just didn't see much sense going, again, at the time being, without a sidewalk along this portion of Webster Road. Didn't see much reason to come down this way. It's also a longer route for any of these people to go to get to the road. And then to go around this way, around the duplex, is just a longer route to get back to where people are going.
So if you can keep that up, and if I can hold the floor for a second. One of the having a sidewalk in this location, it will be appealing to people here, it'll be reasonably appealing to people here, but it won't be appealing to people here who are gonna be headed in this direction. So pulling this sidewalk at least to here would serve everybody and avoid what will be informal traffic across the open space, maybe beating a path. Anyway, there's gonna be a desire line from here at least to here. So if you moved it in this direction, it's gonna meet the desire line, it's gonna get people to the crossing. So there's that, that's just one thing. The question of a facility going in this direction is really separate from the one that we're having here. And it is to deal with the regulation requirement, which talks about sidewalks along public or private streets. And this sidewalk, it's questionable whether or not it's doing that. It's providing access for these homes to points south, but it is not, strictly speaking, meeting the language of the requirement, which is why staff's report indicated the sidewalk at some other facility, because there is, I think, some reasonable chance that there would also be a desire line to the north. Now, whether or not they can be satisfied by walking along the road and then going alongside Old Webster Road or Old Route 7 Webster Road, that's a separate question for the board to consider, but it would be after you say, yeah, the regulations do talk about public and private streets, and I haven't heard anyone say that this isn't a private street. The regs say, not that if there's a plan for a sidewalk in the future, then you require it. The regs say if it's a private street or public street, there should be a sidewalk or some alternative facility. And the specific phrasing of alternate facility is mentioned because I recognize it may not be possible or desirable even to require an additional sidewalk, but something may be.
Well, the other thing about that additional sidewalk is, if I've got my sense of how we've got traffic going through there. So the question would be, and I don't understand the regs as clearly as you do, Dean, but the question that goes through my mind is, if you do provide a sidewalk that goes off into what is a fairly cut through busy little spot there, because people come around and it's blind, would we really want to encourage, from a safety perspective, people walking to a place where there's a lot of traffic? And I know that's probably outside the regs, but what about that factor?
I think that's a good point, and I think we commonly have these sidewalk discussions here on the board, and I think this is now again one of those cases. And for example, when I look at this right now, I can certainly understand that having two sidewalks is somewhat redundant in my opinion. As long as you get to a public way, which you're doing here, then I think you've met the requirement. You've got sidewalks along the road, which is basically gathering the volume from your residences. They're the ones generating the foot traffic. I don't see in the regulations where it says thou shalt have sidewalk along the entire length of a road. It says the road. So, my opinion, I think this serves the purpose, but if you felt you wanted to do the other direction, that would be fine. But I would agree with Ann. I don't think that's a great place to have kids walking out to that north-south oriented piece of Webster Road because, a lot of fast traffic comes around that curve. Anyways, my opinion.
You don't think it's a public transit? Did public transit go down Webster Road?
That was my thinking too. Would you want to get to Route 7 for public bus, and would you go down the little, the one-way Webster Road part to a bus stop, or would it be up closer by the motel area?
The closer bus stop is south.
Right.
It's using this facility,
This
and
and
so
going.
we were deliberate in saying it would be for going north for other purposes. It's probably not to catch transit.
Okay.
It becomes one of the, those sidewalk questions that is always coming is when you build sidewalks that end going to nowhere, which is kind of like what that does. This is actually connecting to a well-defined path.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I like the idea of having those controlled intersections the way they do on the bike path over there where kids can enter and exit out. And there is a buffer between where they exit onto that bike path and the main travel portion of the road there. I think that's important there. It's going to be several families living in
Yeah.
there.
Do we have any jurisdiction over whether they have to have a crossing light? You know, the blinking,
Oh, the blinking light.
You mean if you were looking to require a sidewalk to this point, where would the crossing be that you're referring?
the one that, right down there is nothing at that point
So,
right now.
okay, so are you feeling that this project would tip the balance, so to speak, and that there would be enough use and that the people who cross there should have a signal?
That's,
Yeah.
I like the
So
idea.
So whether or not you would have the authority to make that a condition of approval, yes, I think if you, I guess one of the questions would be, you're basing it on safety. I would suggest that you take a little bit of evidence or get some information that addresses, or maybe ask as condition that when they come in, there's some estimate of the number of crossings.
Right, that's where I'm going, is, because there are quite a few people that cross now, and I was just wondering when that becomes an issue. But signage also came up, that was where I was going as well, that Paul Goodrich thought signing should be placed, and I don't know if that would be another place to put signage.
I think a good place to start on that would probably be the, when this recreational path was designed. I'm sure that in that report, I believe it was done by the state, or in coordination with, with the states, Lamar and
Did
Dickinson.
the initial study, or are you talking about the design of the
The
sidewalk?
design, or
That
the
was
study, probably did the study
D&K.
also, yeah. And so I would imagine that is something they probably addressed and looked at in that study.
Like how much more volume would come along before there was the warrant for a...
Well, that and, you know, that they designed it without having a sign right now. I can't remember if there's a sign, but I know there's not a light there.
I think what's occurring is that people see these rectangular flashing beacon lights and they think, wow, that's pretty cool, because it made me slow down for the people in the crosswalk. So you can look at a situation like that and conclude that that would improve safety. The question would be is, well, what is the standard? Is the standard already being met? And I think that's what Seth's point is that it's already being met. That may be a good conversation, but it's not the same conversation that the board has, because the board's language in the regulations talks about essentially maximizing safety. So if you can make it better, I would say that the board would have the authority to, if it wanted to exercise that discretion. But you might want to see some numbers first.
The other question I had, Dean, is all of the rules about not doing anything permanent in the 50-foot buffer are
I'm sorry,
we've had the issue of fences being put in the 50-foot buffer. Not
Right.
that we want to discuss that, but no permanent structures in the 50-foot buffer?
There are certain structures that are allowed in certain buffers.
Okay. And this is okay.
I don't have the regs, that specific section of the regs open in front of me. I've seen the board, or I believe I've seen instances where the board has approved sidewalks and buffers, or paths and buffers. And so if the board, like with sidewalks, if you're asking my opinion about, are you adhering to the regulations if you don't apply a sidewalk requirement to the entire street, I'm going to say, no, I don't think you are. On the other hand, I'm aware of situations where the board has approved things that may not, strictly speaking, be allowable, but seem good. And this is maybe one of those
Okay.
cases where,
I didn't want to get into another
Yeah.
legal question. Okay.
the recommendation of the staff report wasn't that it be pulled from the buffer.
Okay.
Is maybe another
Thank you.
way of looking at it.
Yep, thank you.
I think on that, I'd like to make sure that it's clear that we would like to have one or the other, but not both.
That's fine.
Yeah, exactly, yes.
I just think, as Doug was saying, I just think if you're gonna push all the foot traffic south, with either signs or a light at that crossing, like, I mean, safety-wise, I kinda agree with Doug on that one, because now you're pushing everybody south, you know what I mean? So anybody using the sidewalk going to the bus stop, or even the one on the 90-degree turn that's there now, they're all going south. I mean, if you take, average 8 homes, a couple kids, maybe a couple people,
Right.
16 or so to 20-ish.
Dean, do we have the internet on here so that I could pull up Google Earth right now?
Yeah, Google Earth is on that.
Just so we could look at that really
Yep.
quickly, so everybody knows what that looks like right now.
Yeah, Google Earth is on.
Or just,
Check the startup menu.
right,
It's
try it a
good.
different, I'll try it a different way.
Well, it's and maybe while you're doing that, the location of the sidewalk where it is now as compared to between
1 and 2.
those other, moving it left to the west by one building, is there a technical reason? You would still line up with the crosswalk.
To the left of the, well, I guess what we were trying to, yeah, between 1 and 2? Sure. We were tight there to begin with. We were only 25 feet between the buildings. So we were just trying to save a little bit of space. And, not that there's a lot of extra space in that other, between units 2 and 3, but there is more space. There's an additional 10 feet, which is a lot. There's our sidewalk and.
Aesthetically, it seems to make sense.
But if people are walking between those buildings anyway.
Oops. Where am I going here?
So there's the crosswalk.
There's a sign.
Right to garden side.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's just a sign.
Right. I guess I would be worried, just looking at this picture, you can see a truck coming the other way. So all of a sudden you introduce lights, and I just think that this has probably been something that was studied in this design of the crosswalk. I'm not positive about that, but I would, be 99% sure that had happened.
Okay, that's fine.
They were still fighting about the patent regarding those devices when that was being designed,
believe it.
unfortunately.
Oh.
Which device is that? Flashing lights?
Yeah, the
warning
installation of that device here in Shelburne and other places in Vermont was held up because there was someone who claimed to be a patent holder, and the feds don't fund those things when there's a patent, and that had to be resolved, so, yeah.
Cool. Great. All right.
I don't know if there's any standard that would trigger one either. I don't.
Well, okay, the town has put them in. I was just wondering what created, mostly where the kids are crossing from school. That's where I see them. Okay.
The museum installed theirs because
Right.
they were concerned about their own employees.
Right. Maybe the next development will trigger one.
All right, how are we doing? Yes, if you want to come up and we'll swear you in. Do you swear or affirm that the evidence you give in the cause under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
Okay, and your name?
Susan Baldwin, 93 Webster Road. Didn't check. I live in the property just to the north, and I just wanted to say that I am definitely in favor of the project, and
Okay.
and like the discussion that it does seem safer to go to the south than to try to connect on old Route 7, part of Webster Road. I had a couple of questions. Have the church considered at all whether there was were there any advantages now or in the future to connect with the public sewer? Which is your public sewer connection by unit 1 or 2?
All 4 units are connected to the public sewer individually. They will be.
Right, but
But which public main do they go into?
Sure.
Is it the one-
Yep,
one
down
or two?
along the south end of the property, right, and this manhole right here, southeast corner.
And had the church considered whether, I mean, is there flexibility that if there were some advantages? Because right now the church connects to a private property across the street with their sewer, and that Larry Williams owns, the commercial complex. And if there was any interest in the future in connecting to the south, that would not be any problem.
My understanding is that they have connected
They've-
already. They've connected to the public sewer.
They're connected to the public sewer, but it's through a private sewer hookup across the street.
Susan may be onto it, that,
There's no record of it being public.
yeah, that
I've-
it would
I've
go
heard
into a
it
private section before it goes into a public section. And you've evidently done some research, and so I don't know that the review of this application would
Would affect-
justify a requirement to change.
Oh, no, I'm not, I just wanted to be sure there was flexibility in the future if they, or if they wanted to connect to the south.
Sure.
If the church wanted to connect to the south, Lot 1.
I've drawn the existing connection from this sewer manhole to which the church actually does connect right now.
To the sewer.
To the public sewer, there's a sewer manhole located in Webster Road, right here. And that's currently where the connection is to the church.
But I thought does it go down the east side? I thought it went under the road.
It does.
Under the road across,
Yeah, it does
into a-
go under Webster Road. It goes south
and
along.
that's where the existing sewer
Correct.
is, along the, can you show me that location again?
It runs
And directly into that?
north and south along Webster Road, I guess you call it the west side of Webster Road. I don't know,
So from that, it looks like it does not go over any private property. It's right in a public way.
not that I'm aware of.
Oh, okay,
Maybe,
thought
I
that
mean,
the
maybe
church-
there was
I-
at some point that it used to.
I thought that they went under, further north into the complex across the street. Oh, very good, so it's into the public sewer, into what public main number is that?
I don't know the,
Right, but that's a public main, and that
Correct.
is one,
I assume they are.
Dean, that's definitely a public main.
I don't know if there's any tie-up there. I mean, it looks like it would be since it's in the right-of-way, but
To be in the right of way.
They're going in here, sewer manhole 1.
I had a,
This one.
I have a question, and it might best be just pursued individually. I wondered if you'd already finished the deed,
the survey.
the survey?
We have. Yep. We haven't placed the property monumentation yet at the corners, but we have finished.
All right. No, I saw the markers on my property. They've
Yeah,
kind of-
those were existing. That's we haven't placed any of the markers yet.
So they were existing?
Correct.
All right, because
Yep.
there was no existing survey to verify my lines with yours, so I can just follow that up.
Yep.
Follow that up.
We will be placing,
Individually.
if this all is approved, then we'll be placing new markers at your corners also, at your southern corners.
So the last question, and really the main question, is it's great news if it's not wetlands in the back, because it certainly looks like wetlands with all the marshy growth. And it's very good news because when I came before the board a couple of years ago with an application to the north that we since have stopped, it was assumed by my engineer, Dave Marshall, that it was wetlands in the back of my property, and it's just a seasonal ditch. And that a state approval would be, there would have to be a process of going to the state for that. Do you have any comments about how did you determine that it's not? I think it's great news if it's not wetlands.
Yep, we've had a permit specialist look through this, and we've got a letter from them. There's no wetlands map. There's no reason to believe that those are wetlands, and the state has not. I don't know how to say it. It's not a. They've told us that we don't. They're not wetlands.
Okay. All right. But my only question
It may be
is.
worth checking, since there was a recent project approved by the board that was later the A&R folks were consulted, and then they redesigned and lost the Schenck project.
Right.
Remember that dropped from close to 60, 59 down to 48?
Was that a mapped wetland there, or no? Did they have
In the
to-
case of Schenck, I don't believe it was a mapped wetland, because it was really a matter of the staffer saying, now's not the time to determine, and rather than wait for possibly a positive answer, they chose to downsize.
I would just point out also that there's no hydric soils. It's on a list of advisory wetland layer that the state provides.
Well, that's,
I might be able to provide an answer to
great
this
news.
also. I met with the state, and that was part of the.
You need to.
I'm sorry.
give us one answer.
Okay. Do you swear or affirm that the evidence you give in the cause under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
Okay. State your
I'm
name.
Robert Infantino. I'm the project coordinator for Trinity Baptist Church. I was the one who made the sketch plan and did the work for the sketch plan approval that we first met with the DRB. I met with I forget what department that is, natural. Is-
A&R.
Thank you, thank you. And I forget the person who I met with, since it was more than 6 months ago, but he clarified to me at that time that that was not considered wetland, and that was part of the question that had to be answered to even go ahead and get the DRB to approve the sketch plan.
You get that in writing?
I have the paperwork. And
No, it's fine.
But I think you have the paperwork also from the first runaround with the sketch plan approval, yeah.
It's always good to get it in writing.
Yeah, it is, and it's in that paperwork that you have
Okay.
somewhere for the first meeting, I say, with the sketch plan.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
It also goes through the process when we go through the application for the construction stormwater, the operational stormwater, and the water and wastewater permit.
Right.
It'll have a chance to be reviewed.
Again.
Right, again.
A lot of eyes on that stuff.
Any further questions, comments from the board? So I guess before we provide a motion, I still would want to talk about the condition number 1 and on the sidewalk and what the board thinks about that condition and if we should perhaps modify it.
My feeling is that we should not try to convince people to walk up and down Webster Road on the north-south side and to use the sidewalks that are currently existing down to Route 7 and back. They could shortcut their way up there, but to make it a positive, this is a good idea, doesn't sound right to me. So I would not want sidewalks out to the road and stop.
I would concur.
So that means we should
So
modify
as
one.
such, we should modify either strike it, because we do have a sidewalk on there, and let the applicant propose a sidewalk, or
Oh, aren't they
Or-
proposing
Well, they've
sidewalk?
Right,
now?
they
You're saying we're
propose,
accepting
they
it as-
propose it, so we accept that as is. So I
Right.
would strike, I guess I would strike this first condition.
I agree with that.
Okay,
Well, I don't know how everybody else thinks.
yeah, I agree. We concur.
I agree.
Absolutely.
I agree.
Okay. So given such, do we have anybody that would like to enter a motion?
Make a motion to finalize the record and close the hearing for application sub 19-08. And move to direct the staff to prepare a decision authorizing Trinity Baptist Church to prepare a final plan review application for sub 19-08 with conditions. Such conditions shall contain those identified in the preliminary plan staff report for the project, numbers 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Friendly amendment, I don't think number 2 applies because they've received that information, is that correct?
Correct.
Well, they've received it, but the plans haven't reflected it.
Right.
Oh,
Okay.
Yep, okay.
Nor have they, dealt with, but you've seen all these letters, you had no.
Yeah, we've
Right.
seen them all. We don't have
You
any
concur, they're
problems with
fine.
them.
Okay, do we have a second?
I have a question. Do we have to say specifically something about the sidewalk, or we just strike it?
No, we're just striking it.
Okay.
So Zeke is mentioning that we will do conditions 2 through 6.
Correct.
Okay.
I'll second
I'll
that.
second it, yeah.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
That was a good time. What, are we done?
It's the gavel, it's the new gavel.
It's the gold one. You're gonna get the gold gavel too.
Do we have anything else, Mr. Chairman?
Okay. Any other business? I know of none.
Some of you may not have heard the announcement that Brittany Odie, previous name, before she was married, was Tenny, will be starting on the 24th. She was previously a person who staffed the board, the zoning board in Charlotte, and has been working for McCain Consulting in Waterbury, and she will be joining you. So
Congratulations.
Great.
That was fast.
it worked out.
Are we off the record now?
No, we have to close the meeting.
And I also would like to get any feedback. I included a note in the distribution of the staff reports. You're getting a ton of material. Is that still everyone's desire? Do you want any kind of winnowing? Let me know if that's the case, or let Brittany know. And then I would just say, looking ahead to the notice for the next agenda, it's a fairly straightforward agenda with some boundary line adjustments and minor subdivision sketch plans, so it shouldn't be a very involved meeting.
The one thing I noticed they've been adding the applications quite often lately. We never used to get those, I don't know.
Well, there were a lot of things that I saw, or at least some that I saw, that I didn't think that the board had received for very long, and the applications are one of them. But then Susan didn't know whether or not Revy had started sending them because it was a request.
I, not that I'm aware of, some time ago, there was something on an application that kind of warranted including it in the packet. and-
Yeah, I think that, I know that I found them helpful when we were going back and forth here on the church on a few things.
We'll continue to provide it,
Yeah,
but just if anybody is crying uncle with the amount of stuff, then we can try to dial it back.
So we're going electronic now?
Well, if we went electronic, you wouldn't have a big packet.
I know.
Worked okay for me.
Yeah, exactly.
And
The town's buying all new laptops for everybody.
It's not in the
and listen,
budget.
I'm still
I need a
running
bigger one, I guess.
unsupported Windows on my
Windows
computer right
7
now.
on yours? Me too, I'm waiting for my computer to blow up.
And there are some draft findings of fact. So before everyone takes off, if there's any need for discussion or deliberation of the draft decision for Rice, please stick around.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna make a motion that we adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.